What's up, everyone? Welcome to Feedback Friday numero 5. I'm sorry I've been out of town on vacation and working around the world for the past month and will be for the next 2 weeks. So without further ado, let's get started. This week we're looking at Carl North's video he shot in Alaska. By the way, sorry I'm not using my microphone. It's not working right now. I'm actually redoing this whole Feedback Friday take because the audio didn't work very well. So we're going to be looking at Carl North's video that he shot in Alaska. This is a travel piece. He shot on the GH4 with a Sigma 18-35. This was all shot at 1080p at 60 frames per second. This camera continues to amaze me at the price point. It just gives great colors and an awesome clean image. So without further ado, let's get going. Keep in mind, guys, this is Carl's very first video he's ever shot. He took everything I taught him in the course and has applied it to this video. I love this shot right here, Carl. Super great composition. Let me go back real quick, though, to this shot. One of the questions Carl asked me was about noise in the image. He said even when there was enough light in the image and his ISO was low, he was still getting some noise. Well, first of all, the GH4 doesn't do very well with low light, so even if it is pretty good lighting, the GH4 is one of those cameras that's going to struggle in low light situations. So my first recommendation would be buy a better low light camera, but if that's not an option, then try not to underexpose even when there is, you think, sufficient enough light. If you underexpose a little bit, then you're going to see some grain either way. So make sure your image is well exposed and there's no crushed blacks or shadows, and that will help you avoid any noise in your image. And as far as denoisers, guys, NeatVid is the best program out there to reduce noise in an image. That's the one I use and it does a great job. It does, however, take a long time to render and process, so I hardly ever use it because I don't want to sit there and render out a 10-second clip for a half hour. So that is an option. It's about $100, but like I said, don't use it that often because I just try and get it good in camera, but it is a lifesaver if you need it. Moving on. Great song choice, by the way, Carl. I thought it really brings a lot of emotion. He does a great job using foreground as well. Got some leading lines there, foreground to help create depth. This was actually shot on an iPhone. You can see his GH4 and Sigma lens sitting there. You know, let that give you guys hope that even if all you have is an iPhone, sometimes it can get the job done. Carl does a great job of finding movement in his image. Does a great job with the glide cam. Keep in mind he's shooting all of this at 60 frames, converting it down to 24, which helps give it a smoother look. Carl is also using warp stabilizer, he told me, on a lot of these clips at 20%. He said it's been a lifesaver for him, but he did say there's a few shots where he's seeing some warping going on, and he asked me, can I not use warp stabilizer if there's tall objects in the scene? And the answer to that is, it just depends on the shot. Certain shots work well with warp stabilizers, others don't. If you're moving past something where something goes completely across the screen, it's probably going to mess up the warp stabilizer. Or if you're like going through a tunnel where the scenery completely changes, warp stabilizer has a hard time with those types of videos. So you'll learn which clips you can and can't save with warp stabilizer, and you can shoot accordingly when you're out there. But as a general rule of thumb, try and get it as smooth as you can, and you know, it just depends. Sometimes I've used warp stabilizer as low as 1% just to help it out a little bit, and if I go any higher, it'll give me some warping artifacts. So just play around with it and you'll be able to save some shots, and some shots you can't. But yeah, so Carl used warp stabilizer at 20% on a lot of these clips, and as you can see, it makes all these clips look super smooth. Another question Carl asked me about was people on camera. He said, do I have to get waivers and release forms if I want to use strangers on camera? If you want to be safe, yes, you should get permission if you use anybody's face. To be honest, on all of Devin Supertramp's shoots where we're doing these types of videos, we never got permission from anybody. We just went ahead and shot them, and we've never had anybody say boo. So that's one way to go with it. The other way is to be super safe and get permission, but As far as approaching people and directing people, if you can get a candid moment, great, capture it and try and fill as much of the frame with them, get as close to them as you can. If you are trying to direct somebody to do something, it's always easy to have a travel buddy to do that for you, but if you don't have anybody, feel free to communicate with these people and tell them, hey, I'd love to get a shot of you, is that okay? And you know, interact and direct them. Sometimes that's what it takes, and like Carl said, adding some human life and element to the video can really help bring some energy and life. Awesome capture there. You'll notice he's done a great job of capturing life. That's a good speed ramp there. Another good speed ramp. Like I said, capturing life. Good job using foreground to glide up against. Motion, guys. Anytime you can find motion, you know, the birds moving around here, the seal jumping in the water, bird flying across the screen, the sun flaring through the trees, bird taking off. Carl's doing a great job of finding motion. If you just have a static shot of the dock and nothing's moving, you might as well take a picture. That's one of the biggest things about video, guys. If you're going to take a video, try and capture motion. So good job on that, Carl. There's a reason they call it motion picture. For those of you who want to know how you accomplish this, this is called hyperlapse. If you download the app Hyperlapse, Hyperlapse allows you to get a self-stabilized shot. You can do it out your window or whatever. But super cool app that he's incorporated into this video. Now when flying in airplanes, this is the time that I love using a Movi or a Ronin. You're just going to be able to get smoother shots. If it's not an option, obviously GlideCam can work, but you'll notice in these shots coming up that he's used quite a bit of warp stabilizer to help out because it's just hard shooting out of moving vehicles. So that's a time when I love using a 3-axis gimbal. Notice on this shot, guys, we're panning a little bit too fast. See all this motion blur and judder effect going on? What I would have done in this situation, Carl, is I would have picked a spot and I would have tracked it and kept the same thing in the same spot of the frame of my video to help reduce that motion blur and that judder effect. So that goes for any type of shot. Anytime you're panning too fast, you're going to get a lot of motion blur, especially at 24 frames per second. So try and slow down those moves and keep focused on one subject as long as you can to reduce the amount of motion blur to the point where it kind of feels disorienting and nauseating. Some more iPhone shots. Awesome scenery. Now this one, I can almost guarantee had warp stabilizer on it, and it probably punched in really far because this shot is super soft. And that's one of the downsides to using warp stabilizer, is it does punch in on your image, which is going to down res the image. And this one looks like it 2 times it. So be aware that warp stabilizer is going to down res your image. And again, a little bit too much motion blur, panning a little bit too fast past the camera, making it a little disorienting. Beautifully done, Carl. I mean, for his first video ever, guys, this should give everybody hope that it doesn't matter where you're at. I mean, 3 months ago, he bought his first gear, bought this course, and produced this video. And this is the type of video that a lot of companies would pay good money for. So let that give all of you confidence that it doesn't matter where you're at. As long as you apply the teachings I've taught you and get out and create content, you can make it in this world. Last question from Carl was, distortion on GoPro footage, is there a way to fix that fisheye wide lens look? I believe there is software out there that can help fix that. I personally have never used it. Yes, the older GoPros are going to struggle more with distortion, so I'd recommend getting a newer one. They're going to do a better job. Plus, they have the option of going wide, medium, and narrow, which will eliminate that distortion look. So that's it, guys, for this week's Feedback Friday. If you guys have any further questions, please let me know.